Sir, my mom never came home last night. The CEO followed the little girl into the blizzard. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The wind roared down the narrow street like a living creature, throwing flakes of snow in every direction. Midnight in downtown Chicago usually meant late-night taxis, neon signs, and the distant hum of traffic. But tonight the blizzard had swallowed the entire city whole. Streetlights flickered. Storefronts were dark. Hardly anyone was outside. Except her. A tiny girl, no older than 7, stood in front of a 24-hour grocery store. She wore a thin pink jacket that did nothing against the freezing gusts, and she hugged a school backpack to her chest for warmth. Snow piled around her boots. Her breath came out in shaky clouds. And 10 feet away, stepping out of the building next door, was Elias Carter, the 34-year-old CEO of Carter Industries. Tall, sharply dressed in a charcoal coat, and known throughout the city as a relentless, brilliant billionaire who never left the office before midnight. The kind of man people whispered about but rarely approached. He almost walked past her. Almost. But something in the way she stood, small, trembling, trying not to cry, made him pause. Elias lived in a world of spreadsheets, deadlines, and decisions that affected thousands of employees. Feelings were a luxury he had trained himself to ignore. Yet tonight something made him turn his head. The girl looked up at him. Snow clung to her eyelashes. Sir, my mom never came home last night. The words hit him like a punch. Elias blinked, unsure if he heard her correctly over the howling wind. What did you say? She swallowed hard and tried again, her voice thin and hoarse. My mom, she works the late shift. She always comes home. Always. But she did not last night. I waited and waited. I went to school and came back. She is still not home. I think something happened. Her lower lip trembled, but she forced herself not to cry. That alone cracked something inside him. A familiar ache stirred in his chest, an echo from years ago, one he never allowed himself to think about. His younger sister Emily, lost during a winter storm when they were children. The night he failed to protect her. The night he learned that love, no matter how deep, could be ripped away in a heartbeat. He cleared his throat. Where do you live? Are you alone out here? The girl nodded. I came to the store because the lights were still on. I thought maybe someone would help. She lowered her gaze, voice shrinking. But they are busy. They told me to call the police. I did, but they said I have to wait. I do not want to wait anymore. Elias felt a sharp stab of anger, not at her but at the world that expected a child to fend for herself on a night like this. What is your name? He asked. Lily, she whispered. Lily Hart. Another icy gust slammed into them. Lily shivered violently. Without thinking, Elias removed his wool coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. It nearly swallowed her whole, but she clutched the collar with both hands like it was the warmest thing she had ever touched. Her wide eyes lifted to his face, confused. Why are you helping me, Sir? Elias glanced at the swirling white sky, then back at her. Because you should not be out here alone. No child should. Lily hesitated, then reached into her backpack. Maybe this will help. She pulled out a worn photograph, her mother standing beside her in front of an old brick apartment building. This is where we live. Could you come with me, please? I do not want to go back alone. Elias stared at the photo, then at Lily, then at the blizzard swallowing the city. Something ancient and painful rose in his chest, a memory of a promise he broke long ago, a child he did not save. Not this time. He knelt so he could meet Lily's eyes. Yes, I will go with you. We are going to find your mom. And as he stood and took her small, freezing hand in his, Elias Carter, one of the most powerful men in the city, stepped into the storm beside a little girl who had no idea who he truly was, or how deeply this night would change both of their lives. Snow whipped across the windshield as Elias led Lily toward his black SUV parked along the curb. The blizzard had only grown worse, turning the city into a blur of white. He helped her climb into the back seat, buckled her in, and turned the heater on high. Her small hands hovered over the vents, trembling as warmth slowly returned to her fingers. Elias settled into the driver's seat, but he did not start the engine right away. He took one steadying breath. Something about this night felt heavier than a simple good deed. It echoed too closely to the childhood memory he fought to bury. He glanced at Lily through the rearview mirror. "Can you show me your home on the map?" he asked gently. She unfolded the worn photograph again and pointed to the building behind her mother. "It is on West Briar Street, apartment 3B. We have lived there since I was 4. Her voice cracked on the last word. Elias nodded and began driving, tires crunching through thick layers of snow. Streetlights flashed across her face, revealing how exhausted she truly was. She kept her eyes glued to the window, watching each passing block like she was afraid her mother might appear at any moment. "Lily," Elias said, keeping his tone soft, "when you woke up this morning and your mother was not home, what did you do first?" She hugged the backpack tighter. "I waited. I made myself surreal, but the milk was expired, so I threw it away." She paused. "Then I walked to school because Mom always tells me to never skip. I kept thinking she would be there when I came home." Elias felt something twist inside his chest. A child should not have to manage fear like this alone. "When I got home and she still was not there," Lily whispered, "I called the police. They told me she is probably working late or staying with a friend. But she never does that. She always comes home. Always." She said that last word with the insistence of someone who had built her entire world on a single person. The SUV turned into a neighborhood where the snowplows had not reached yet. Old brick buildings lined the street, their stairways buried beneath powder. Elias parked near the address. "Stay close," he said as he stepped out and opened her door. The wind shoved against them, but Lily held his hand tightly as they climbed the icy steps to her apartment. Inside the dim hallway, a flickering bulb cast long shadows. Lily unlocked the door. The apartment was small, cold, and completely dark except for the faint glow from the street outside. "Mom," Lily called out, her voice tiny. No answer. Elias scanned the space. A coat was missing from the rack. A pair of shoes gone from the mat. The sink held last night's dishes frozen in place as if the world had paused mid-moment. Lily walked toward a small table and lifted a small paper snowflake her mother must have made for her. Her fingers traced the folds. "She never leaves without telling me." "Never." Elias crouched beside her. "We will find her. I promise." Just then, a door creaked open next door. A middle-aged woman peered into the hallway. "Lily, honey, what are you doing home with a stranger?" Lily hurried over. "Mrs. Harper, have you seen my mom? She did not come home last night." The woman sighed heavily and stepped fully into the hall. "I was worried. I saw the ambulance outside the diner where she works. I thought they were helping a customer, but I did not see her come home." "An ambulance?" Elias asked, his voice sharpening. Mrs. Harper nodded. "They took someone out on a stretcher. I could not see who." Lily froze. All color drained from her face. Elias put a steady hand on her shoulder. "Which diner?" "The one on North Ashland." "The Blue Lantern." Elias felt the pieces shift inside his mind. That diner was located on the ground floor of one of Carter Industries' older buildings. He knew it intimately. Too intimately. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. He stood his decision, immediate and unwavering. "Lily, we are going there. Right now." She looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Do you think she is hurt?" Elias did not answer directly. He offered his hand instead. "I think your mother needs us, and we are going to get to her." Lily slipped her small hand into his, gripping it with all the strength she had left, and together they stepped back into the blizzard, heading straight toward the place where everything had started to unravel. Snow clung to Elias's coat as he guided Lily back into the SUV and pulled away from the curb. The heater hummed loudly, fighting the cold that leaked in through every window. Lily sat upright in the back seat, gripping the straps of her backpack as if it were a life vest. Her eyes did not move from the road ahead. Elias checked on her through the mirror. "If you feel cold or dizzy, tell me right away." She shook her head. "I am fine. I just want to find my mom." The determination in her small voice reminded him of Emily, his sister, the way she used to insist she was brave even when she was terrified. The memory made the steering wheel feel heavier in his hands. The streets grew narrower as they headed toward the Blue Lantern. Snowdrifts piled against buildings. Store signs were half buried. It was the kind of night when people stayed inside when emergency crews struggled to reach even the most urgent calls. But Elias refused to turn back. When they reached the diner, its neon sign flickered weakly through the storm. The parking lot was half frozen with a faint indentation marking where an ambulance had once parked. The windows were dark chairs flipped onto tables. Lily hurried to unbuckle her seatbelt. "Can we check inside? Maybe they left something?" Elias stepped out first, shielding her from the wind as they approached the door. A CLOSAD sign hung crookedly in the window, rattling against the glass. He tried the handle. Locked. He dialed the emergency number for the property management team, one of Carter Industries' smaller divisions, but the line rang unanswered. Storm outages. He gritted his teeth. Then Lily tugged on his coat. "There is someone in the back." She pointed toward the alley beside the building. A faint light glowed behind the frosted glass of the rear door. Elias led her carefully over the icy ground. The back entrance was slightly open, a wedge of warm air leaking out. Inside, a man in a stained apron was stacking boxes, his face pale with exhaustion. Elias spoke firmly. "Excuse me. We need information about a woman who works here. She may have been taken by ambulance last night." The man stiffened. "I cannot help you. I already talked to the police." Lily stepped forward, her voice tiny yet unwavering. "Please. She is my mom. She did not come home." The man's shoulders slumped. He rubbed his forehead before answering. "Your mom collapsed near the end of her shift. She had been working extra hours for weeks. Our supervisor called the building's on-site medic to check her out, but he decided she needed to be transported." "Which hospital?" Elias asked. The man hesitated. "She was not taken to a hospital." Elias's voice cooled instantly. "Explain." The worker swallowed hard. "Our building has an internal medical unit. The medic said it would be faster to take her there instead of waiting for city responders." Elias felt a jolt of recognition. The internal medical unit was on the lower floors of the North Ashland Tower, a building fully owned by Carter Industries. He knew every department in that building, but he had no idea employees from the diner were being handled through that unit. "Why would a diner employee be taken there?" he asked, his voice sharp. The man lowered his gaze. "Our manager makes deals to get faster evaluations, but they do not like paperwork. They told me to forget it happened." Lily's voice broke. "Is she there now? I do not know," the worker whispered. "They told me to keep my mouth shut." Elias stepped closer, his presence commanding. "Listen to me carefully. A woman collapsed under your watch and was taken to my company's facility without proper documentation. You will tell me everything you saw, every detail from the moment she fell to the moment they moved her." The man blinked. "Your company, yes," Elias said, his jaw tightening. "Carter Industries is my company." Shock spread across the worker's face. Lily stared at Elias with wide eyes, the truth finally settling in. You are the CEO," she whispered. Elias softened when he looked at her. "I will explain later. Right now, all that matters is finding your mother." He turned back to the worker. "Describe the medic." He wore a dark uniform with the company patch. "He left through the south exit, the one that connects to the underground loading dock. That is where they keep the transport carts." Elias immediately understood. The underground dock connected directly to the medical unit. If the medic took that route, he had bypassed hospital systems entirely. "Thank you," Elias said, already guiding Lily back toward the SUV. "You have been helpful." The man nodded, relief flooding his face. Lily climbed into the back seat again, gripping her backpack so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Is my mom hurt? Is she scared?" Elias sat behind the wheel and looked at her with absolute certainty. "She is not alone anymore. We are close, Lily. I promise you that." He started the engine, turned toward the North Ashland Tower, and accelerated through the storm. Whatever waited for them in that building, he was ready to face it. He would not fail another little girl. Not again. Snow hammered the windshield as Elias drove toward the North Ashland Tower, the building rising like a dark silhouette against the white sky. The roads were nearly empty now, coated in thick ice, but he pushed forward with a steady urgency. Lily sat quietly in the back seat, clutching the worn photograph of her mother. Every few seconds she glanced at Elias through the mirror, as if drawing strength from the fact that she was no longer facing this night alone. When the SUV rolled into the underground parking garage, the motion sensors flicked on overhead lights one by one. The space was nearly silent except for the distant hum of generators fighting the storm. Elias parked near the elevator and stepped out, then opened Lily's door and helped her down. The air inside the garage was warmer, but the tension only grew heavier. "Are we going to the place where they took her?" Lily asked softly. "Yes," Elias answered, locking the car. "The medical unit is on the basement level. It is meant for quick evaluations and injuries on work sites. It is not supposed to take the place of a hospital." Her eyes widened again, fear and hope mixing in equal measure. They approached the elevator and Elias swiped his access card. The doors slid open with a metallic click. Lily stepped in first, holding the photo against her chest as if shielding her mother's image from the uncertainty around them. The elevator descended with a low rumble. When the doors opened again, they stepped into a hallway lit by bright fluorescent lights. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee. Nurses and night shift staff moved about, quietly clipped voices carrying from behind doors, but never loud enough to understand. Lily lingered close to Elias. Her fingers brushed his coat sleeve. "Will they tell us where she is?" "Yes," Elias said. "They will." A woman at the reception desk looked up. "Good evening. Do you have an appointment or a work-related injury to report?" Elias stepped forward, his tone calm but firm. "I am looking for a woman brought here last night from the Blue Lantern Diner. She collapsed during her shift. I need her status immediately." The receptionist frowned and tapped rapidly on her keyboard. Her name is Margaret Hart," Lily said quickly. "She is my mom." At the sound of Lily's voice, the receptionist softened, but her uncertainty lingered. "Let me check." "One moment." Her eyes scanned the screen. Her brows pulled together. Elias saw it instantly. Something was not right. "Is she here?" he asked. "Yes," the receptionist said slowly, "but the record says her case is restricted. Access is limited to supervisory staff." Elias's jaw tightened. "Restricted for a diner employee who collapsed from exhaustion. I am not allowed to modify permissions," she said carefully. The supervisor on duty signed off on the restriction. "Who?" Elias asked. The receptionist swallowed. "Mr. Grayson Keller." A cold spark flashed through Elias's chest. Grayson Keller was the site operations manager for this entire building, including the medical unit. He had a reputation for cutting corners to improve efficiency, a habit Elias had warned him about more than once. "Where is he now?" Elias asked. "Probably doing rounds near the exam rooms," she replied. "Thank you. That will be all." Elias placed a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder and guided her down the hall. Room numbers glowed on metal plaques. Machines beeped softly behind closed doors. Lily's footsteps were small but determined. She tugged on Elias's sleeve. "If the person you are looking for is mean, will he try to stop us from seeing my mom?" Elias glanced down at her, his voice steady. "No one will stop us. Not tonight." They turned a corner, and there he was, Grayson Keller, clipboard in hand, gray coat buttoned tightly, eyes widening in shock the moment he saw Elias approaching. "Mr. Carter," Grayson stammered. "I did not expect you to be here." "That much is clear," Elias replied. "Where is Margaret Hart?" Grayson hesitated, glancing at Lily for a fraction of a second. "She is stable, but she needed rest. We were planning to transfer her once the storm passes." "Why was her file restricted?" Elias demanded. Grayson clutched the clipboard. "It was just a procedural decision. She collapsed during overtime, and I did not want unnecessary attention on what." Elias cut in. His voice did not rise, but it sharpened like ice. "On the fact that you have been overworking employees without proper breaks, or on the fact that you bypassed emergency protocols." Grayson stepped back. I was trying to keep things efficient." Lily's small voice broke through the tense silence. "Please, I just want to see my mom." Grayson looked at her, swallowed hard, and nodded. "She is in room 16. Third door on the left." Lily gasped softly. Elias thanked her with a gentle touch on her back and guided her forward. But before they reached the room, Grayson called out, "Sir, it might be better if you talked to her first. She was very weak when she arrived." Elias turned. "I will talk to her with her daughter beside me." He did not wait for a reply. He placed his hand on the doorknob of room 16 and opened it slowly. A soft beep echoed rhythmically from inside. The room was dim, warm, and quiet. And on the bed, wrapped in blankets, lay Margaret Hart, Lily's mother, pale, unconscious, but alive. Lily inhaled sharply, a sound filled with relief, fear, and longing all at once. Elias stepped aside to let her run to her mother's bedside. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I am here." Elias stood in the doorway watching the scene unfold, feeling something shift deep inside him. Tonight was not over. There were answers still buried in this building. But for now, finding Margaret alive was the only victory that mattered. Lily stood beside the hospital bed, her small fingers wrapped around her mother's hand. Margaret lay still, her breathing shallow but steady. The heart monitor pulsed in soft, even beats. The sight of her mother alive seemed to soften some of the fear in Lily's shoulders, but her eyes glistened with worry that had not yet faded. Elias stepped farther into the room and gently closed the door behind them. The blizzard outside muffled all outside noise, leaving only the hum of machines and the faint ticking of a wall clock. He walked to the opposite side of the bed, studying the screen displaying Margaret's vitals. Her numbers were stable but low. Lily looked up at him. "Is she going to wake up soon? Her body is exhausted," Elias said softly. "She needs rest more than anything. But she is safe now, and she is getting the care she needs." Lily nodded, though her eyes filled with tears she tried to blink away. "She works so hard. She always tries to make everything better for me. She never complains, not even when she is tired." Elias felt something tighten in his chest. He had sat beside a hospital bed before, once upon a time, holding his sister's hand after the storm that changed everything. The memory lingered like a scar he never allowed to heal. He pulled a chair closer. "Sit with her. She will want you close when she wakes." Lily climbed onto the chair, still clutching her mother's hand. For a long moment, the room was quiet. Then behind them, the door opened slightly. Grayson Keller stepped inside, his expression strained. "Mr. Carter," Grayson murmured. "I want to explain." Elias raised a hand. "Not in here." Grayson swallowed and nodded. Elias stepped outside with him, closing the door part way so Lily would not hear. The hallway felt colder than the room they had just left. "Start talking," Elias said. Grayson shifted uneasily. "She collapsed after working a double shift. I thought it would be better to bring her here quickly instead of waiting for a city ambulance." "Why was the case restricted?" Elias asked. "Why was her daughter left in the dark for more than 24 hours? Grayson hesitated. If word got out that an employee collapsed during overtime, it would raise questions. "I wanted to resolve it internally before you found out. I was trying to protect the company's reputation." Elias stared at him, incredulous. At the expense of a child wandering alone in a blizzard, at the expense of a woman who could have died without proper medical documentation. Grayson's face reddened. "I made a judgment call. And it was the wrong one," Elias replied. "You hid the incident. You denied her daughter information. You violated multiple protocols. I will handle the consequences after Margaret is stable." Grayson opened his mouth again, but Elias's tone left no room for argument. "Leave. Now." Grayson backed away, his expression pale, before turning and walking swiftly down the hall. Elias let the tension drain from his shoulders before returning to the room. When he stepped inside, Lily was humming softly to her mother, a broken melody that trembled with every note. He moved closer. "You are being very brave." Lily looked up. "I did not know what else to do. I was so scared." He sat beside her. "You did everything right. You kept looking for help. You kept going even when people ignored you. That takes courage." She stared at her mother again. "I just want her to wake up." "She will," Elias said. "She just needs time." Lily hesitated, then leaned gently against his arm. Elias froze for a fraction of a second before placing his hand lightly on her back. The small gesture hit him harder than it should have. It felt like a moment he had failed to give someone long ago. A faint beep from the monitor drew their eyes to the bed. Margaret's fingers twitched just barely, but enough for Lily to gasp. "Mom," Lily whispered, leaning forward. Margaret did not wake yet, but her hand moved again, brushing against Lily's palm. Elias exhaled slowly. It was the first sign of improvement, and it meant they were running out of time to uncover what had truly happened before Margaret collapsed. He rose to his feet. "Lily," he said gently, "stay with your mom. I will be right outside." She nodded, never letting go of her mother's hand. Elias stepped into the hallway, his jaw set. The truth about last night was somewhere in this building, and he intended to find it. Elias paced the quiet hallway outside room 16, his footsteps echoing off the polished floor. The building was calmer now, the night shift moving in slow, tired rhythms. But his mind raced. Margaret's collapse was no simple medical emergency. Grayson's evasiveness, the restricted file, the hidden transport route, None of it made sense unless someone was trying to cover their tracks. He approached the nearest workstation where a young nurse was entering notes into a chart. She looked up, startled. "Oh, Mr. Carter. I did not realize you were here tonight." Elias lowered his voice. "I need access to last night's intake records. Everything involving emergency evaluations brought in through the loading dock." The nurse's expression tightened with concern. "We usually do not bring patients through the dock unless the situation is urgent or if the weather is bad." "Which last night certainly was," Elias replied. "Please pull the logs. I will review them myself." She hesitated, then nodded and typed rapidly. After a moment, she turned the screen toward him. "These are the entries from the past 24 hours. Elias scanned the list. One entry immediately caught his attention: unidentified female, mid-30s. Non-responsive. Brought in by internal medic G. Keller. Condition: collapse due to overwork and dehydration. Instead of a proper patient ID, the entry was tagged with a code used for temporary placeholders. Improper procedure. Completely unacceptable. Why was she not logged under her full name? Elias asked. The nurse bit her lip. "I was not here during intake, but sometimes supervisors instruct staff to use placeholders until paperwork is completed. I know it is not correct protocol." "It is not just incorrect," Elias said. "It is dangerous." He took a photo of the screen for documentation and thanked her before heading toward the corridor where the security office was located. The low hum of surveillance monitors filled the room as he stepped inside. A guard looked up. "Mr. Carter, is something wrong? I need last night's footage from the south loading dock," Elias said. "Every minute, from the time the ambulance would have arrived at the Blue Lantern until the medic entered this building." The guard nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." One moment, the footage popped onto the screen. Snowstorm static, flashing lights, and at last a shadowed figure pushing a transport cart. The medic's face was obscured by a hood pulled low, but Elias recognized Grayson's hunched posture instantly. He watched as Grayson brought the unconscious woman into the loading dock, signed her in with a quick swipe of a badge, and disappeared down the hallway. But something else caught Elias's attention. He pointed at the screen. "Zoom in on that." The guard enlarged the feed. Under the harsh light, Margaret's wrist was visible. A large bruise, dark swollen, fresh, wrapped around her skin. Not the kind caused by a simple collapse. More like someone had grabbed her. Hard. Elias felt a cold anger flash through him. "Was this noted in her report?" "No, sir," the guard said quietly. "There is nothing like that in the file." He straightened slowly. "Save this footage. Make a copy. I will need it." After stepping out of the office, he walked back toward room 16, replaying every detail in his mind. Overwork could not explain that bruise. Exhaustion could not explain why Grayson hid her identity. And it certainly did not explain why a diner employee was funneled through a back entrance instead of being sent to a hospital. He reached the door of the room where Lily was still sitting beside her mother. The lights cast a warm glow over her small frame. Despite her fear, she kept watch with unwavering devotion. Elias entered quietly. "How is she?" Lily brushed her mother's hair away from her face. She squeezed my hand again. "I think she is trying to wake up." "That is a good sign," Elias said, sitting beside her. "She is getting stronger." Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide and searching. "Did you find out what happened to her?" Elias paused, choosing his words carefully. "I found something important. Something that will help us understand what happened last night. But I need a little more time." "Is she going to be all right?" Lily whispered. He met her gaze with steady conviction. "Yes. And I promise you this, Lily. Whoever failed her, whoever hurt her, they will answer for it." Lily nodded slowly, leaning closer to her mother. Elias stood once more, his resolve solidifying. Margaret was not just exhausted. Someone had tried to silence her. And he intended to find out who. Elias stepped back into the hallway, closing the door gently behind him, so Lily would not see the storm that had begun to gather in his expression. He walked a few paces, stopping beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. His heartbeat was steady, but his thoughts were sharp and fast. The bruise on Margaret's wrist, the restricted file, the quiet panic in Grayson's eyes, every sign pointed to something far more serious than a simple collapse. He needed answers. He headed toward the stairwell where the internal medic's office was located. The door was cracked open, the lights off except for a single lamp illuminating a cluttered desk. Piles of patient charts, Unopened supply boxes and a half-finished cup of coffee sat scattered across the surface. A man wearing a dark medical uniform came out of the adjoining storage room, nearly dropping the tablet in his hands when he saw Elias. "Mr. Carter, I did not know you were in the building tonight." Elias looked at the name tag. Paul Bennett. A long-time company medic. Reliable. Honest. Not the type to hide mistakes. At least not willingly. "Mr. Bennett," Elias said calmly, "I need to ask you about the woman brought in last night." "Margaret Hart." Paul swallowed hard. "I figured you would." "Did you evaluate her personally?" The medic nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. She was unconscious when she arrived. Her pulse was weak and she was severely dehydrated. But that is not what worried me most." Elias waited. Paul continued, voice dropping. "She had a bruise on her wrist. A deep one. The kind that does not come from falling. More like someone grabbed her." Elias's eyes narrowed. "Where is that note in her file?" Paul hesitated. "I wrote it down. But when I checked the file this morning, it was gone. Replaced. Edited. Someone removed it. There was only one person with access to modify medical reports without triggering an audit: the site supervisor. Grayson Keller." Elias's voice grew quiet, colder. "Did Grayson instruct you to change anything?" Paul shook his head quickly. "No. He took the report from me before I finished uploading it. He said he would handle the documentation because it was late and the system was running slow. I thought he was helping. I did not realize he was hiding something." Elias took a breath, grounding himself. "What else do you remember? Anything unusual?" Paul nodded. "Just before she passed out completely, she tried to say something. She was slurring her words, but I could make out one phrase." "What phrase?" Paul looked uneasy. "She said he grabbed me. Then she lost consciousness." The hallway suddenly felt colder. "Did she say who?" Elias asked. "No," Paul replied. "But she looked terrified." Elias rubbed his jaw, the pieces fitting together in a way he wished they did not. Margaret did not just collapse from exhaustion. She had been frightened, hurt, possibly trying to escape someone. "Thank you," Elias said. "You did the right thing telling me." Paul exhaled, relieved. "What are you going to do?" Elias turned toward the direction Grayson had disappeared earlier. "What I should have done hours ago." He walked back to room 16. Lily looked up as he entered, hope shimmering in her tired eyes. "Did you find anything?" Elias knelt to her level. "I found more clues about what happened. And I promise you, Lily, I will not stop until I know the whole truth." She nodded and clutched her mother's hand tighter. Elias stood again, his voice steady but firm. "Stay with your mom. I am going to finish this." Because someone in this building had crossed a line, and Elias was about to cross it right back. Elias left the medical unit with a calmness that was far more dangerous than anger. The truth was no longer a shadow. Someone had grabbed Margaret. Someone had tried to hide it. And Grayson Keller was at the center of every lie. He headed straight for the operations office on the lower floor. The hall was dim lit only by emergency bulbs flickering from the storm outside. When he pushed the door open, Grayson stood inside, stuffing papers into a drawer like he already knew his time was up. "Going somewhere?" Elias asked. Grayson froze, turning with a brittle smile. "Sir, I was just organizing the intake paperwork." "Do not lie to me again," Elias said, stepping inside. "I have the footage. I have the logs. I have the medic's statement. You hid her identity, deleted her medical notes, and bypassed every protocol we have." Grayson's face drained of color. "It was a misunderstanding. I was trying to prevent an overreaction." "You grabbed her?" Elias said. "Did you think I would not find out?" Grayson's voice cracked. "She tried to leave during her shift. She said she felt sick, but we were short-staffed. I did not mean to hurt her. You grabbed her hard enough to bruise her," Elias said. "She collapsed, minutes later. And instead of calling an ambulance, instead of letting her daughter know, you dragged her through the back entrance and buried the evidence." Grayson's hands shook. "Please, Mr. Carter. If this gets out, I will lose everything. You should have thought about that before you hurt an innocent woman." For a moment the room was silent, except for the storm raging outside. Then Elias stepped closer, his voice unwavering. "You are suspended, effective immediately. Your badge access is revoked. Security will escort you out. And first thing in the morning, legal will handle the rest." Grayson stumbled backward, panic creeping into his voice. "Sir, please, this conversation is over," Elias said. Two security guards entered as if summoned by the weight of his tone. They escorted Grayson out as he sputtered useless excuses into the air. The door shut behind them with a final heavy click. Elias stood alone in the quiet office. Justice had started, but it was not finished. He returned to the medical unit, his pace measured. When he entered room 16, Lily looked up instantly, hope shining through her exhaustion. "Did you find who hurt her?" she asked. "Yes," Elias said, lowering himself to her eye level. "And he will never lay a hand on her again." Lily let out a shaky breath, gripping her mother's hand even tighter. Elias rested a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "Your mom is safe now, and I promise you everything is going to change from here." In that moment, for the first time, all night, Lily allowed herself to believe him. Morning light slipped through the blinds of room 16 as the blizzard finally began to calm. The world outside was buried in snow, but inside the medical unit warmth settled into every corner. Lily sat curled in the chair beside her mother, her eyelids heavy from staying awake all night. Elias stood near the window, speaking quietly with the attending physician who had just finished a full evaluation. "She is stable," the doctor said. "Dehydration, overexertion, and elevated stress levels. But she should wake up fully once her body finishes recovering." Elias nodded. "Thank you. Make sure she receives whatever care she needs, no matter the cost." When the doctor left, Elias walked back to Lily. She blinked slowly, fighting sleep. "Lily," he said gently, "you should rest for a little while. Your mother is safe." "I want to be awake when she opens her eyes," Lily whispered. "Then stay right where you are," Elias said, lowering himself into the chair beside her. "She will see both of us when she wakes." It happened minutes later. A weak sound escaped from the bed. Lily gasped and leaned forward. Margaret's fingers twitched again, and then her eyelids fluttered open. Confusion washed across her face for a moment, until she saw Lily's small hands wrapped around hers. "Mom," Lily cried softly, tears spilling over. "You woke up." Margaret's voice was faint. "Sweetheart, what happened? How did you—" "I found help," Lily said, glancing toward Elias. "He came with me." Margaret's gaze moved to him, surprised and grateful. "Thank you. I do not know what would have happened if she had not found someone." "You do not need to thank me," Elias replied. "You needed help. You deserved help." Margaret tried to sit up, but Elias steadied her gently. "Take it slow. You had a very long night." Her eyes filled with emotion as she looked at her daughter. "I was so scared I would not make it back to her." "You will," Elias said. "And you will never be left in the dark again. The man responsible for hurting you has been removed. There will be a full investigation. You are protected now." Margaret closed her eyes for a moment, relief washing through her. Lily wiped her cheeks with the back of her sleeve. "We are going to be okay now." "Right, Mom," Margaret nodded weakly. "Yes, sweetheart. We are." Elias looked at the two of them, a quiet warmth settling deep in his chest. "When you're ready, both of you will have support. A safer job for you, Margaret. Benefits. Stability. Everything you need to start over." Margaret's breath caught. "Why would you do that for us?" He met her gaze with calm certainty. "Because no one should struggle alone. Not in my company. Not in my city." Lily leaned into her mother, her tiny voice soft but full of hope. "We have a future now." Elias nodded, feeling something in him shift, something he had not felt since the day he lost his sister. A sense of purpose. A sense of healing. And as the storm outside finally broke, the three of them sat together in the gentle morning light, knowing that the worst was over and a new beginning had just begun.